And we're going to go ahead into my hot topic.
Lies, shenanigans.
And I'm asking the question, is AOC a liar? And is this truth, lies, or shenanigans? I'm going with all of the above. So last week, after being somewhat MIA since the events of January 6th, where terrorists stormed the U.S. Capitol building, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, aka AOC, went to Instagram to share her story from that day. But as to be expected, Fox News and Republicans immediately went to spin mode, using freshman Representative Nancy Mace out of South Carolina as their anti-AOC poster child. So let me play this.
Not at one moment during the events of January 6th did any rioter or any insurrectionist come down the hallways where our offices are located. I took to task the press for making these claims. What I did was state the facts. I live in reality, and I said that there were no rioters in the hallways of Cannon. I'm 2 doors down from you. She lost it. She doesn't deal in reality. I think it's really important that we take members to task when they're not being honest with the American people. This division is hurting our country.
And as you can see, Mace claimed AOC was outright lying. And Fox News perpetuated, saying that AOC claimed there were rioters in the Cannon building where her office was located. But that building was never breached by rioters. Now, this is true, but the problem is AOC never said that. Now, she had an hour-and-a-half conversation, and the news media has been chopping it up into little tiny pieces and leaving out key points in the process, making it easy to spin this story. But I've managed to clip it down for you guys, so that you can get a better overall picture without sitting through the full hour-and-a-half. So let's listen to her explain what exactly happened. See if she's lying. We'll see you can see for yourself.
These folks who tell us to move on, that it's not a big deal, that we should forget what's happened, even telling us to apologize, these are the same tactics of abusers. I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And I haven't told many people that in my life. When we go through trauma compounds on each other. As a survivor, I struggle with the idea of being believed. What's odd is that I am in a job where people are constantly calling me untruthful or that I'm exaggerating. So there's a great irony in that. What they're asking for when they say, can we just move on, is that what they're asking is, can we just forget this happened so that I can do it again? Maybe Senators Josh Hawley or Senator Ted Cruz or Representative Mo Brooks would say, you know what? I was mistaken. I did not realize what the impact of my actions was going to be. But no, they've had almost a month and they haven't said that. They have doubled down and they said I did the right thing. And if I could go back, I would do it all over again. One of the things that I would like us to dispel is the idea this insurrection happened suddenly, about Thursday. Text messages came from other members of Congress saying that they knew and that they were hearing even from Trump people and Republicans that there was violence expected on Wednesday. If you so much as say Black Lives Matter around the Capitol Hill complex, it's like 9 barricades go up. I mean, if you see the protests and the amount of militarization from last year's protests, it was like boom, 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 boom. National Guard comes in, like all these militarized people are around. And here you have lots of people saying that violence is expected on the 6th. And there's just a waist-high parade fence. Anyone who tells you that we couldn't have seen this coming is lying to you. What Capitol Police told House admin is, don't worry, all of the plans are taken care of, but we can't tell you the details. We don't want people who are trying to plan harm to know the details of our security plan. This is like the leadership of Capitol Police and the Sergeant at Arms. So for you all to know, there's the Capitol Hill complex, but members of Congress don't actually work in that building with the dome. There's buildings like right next to the dome, and that's where our actual offices are. All of a sudden, I hear boom, 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 boom on my door, then every door going into my office. Like someone was trying to break the door down. No one saying who they were, nobody identifying themselves. I run over to G and he just goes, hide, hide, run and hide. I jump into my bathroom and I just keep hearing these bang, bang, bang. When all of a sudden I hear that whoever was trying to get inside got into my office. And then I just start to hear these yells of, where is she? Where is she? I just thought to myself, they got inside. And so I hide behind my door like this, like I'm here, and the bathroom door starts going like this, like the bathroom door is in front of me, and I'm like this, and the door hinges right here, and I just hear, where is she? Where is she? This was the moment I thought everything was over. I mean, I thought I was going to die. I had a lot of thoughts. I felt that if this was the journey that my life was taking, that I felt that things were going to be okay. And that, you know, I had fulfilled my purpose. I start to look through the door hinge and I see this white man in a black beanie open the door of my personal office and yell again, where is she? I have never been quieter in my entire life. And then all of a sudden I hear my staffer, G, it's okay, come out. And I come out and this man is a Capitol Police officer. But then it didn't feel right. Things weren't adding up. Like there was no partner there. He wasn't yelling like, this is Capitol Police, this is Capitol Police. He was looking at me in all of this anger and hostility, so much hostility that G was sizing him up to fight him. He said, I didn't know if he was there to help us or hurt us. And so the situation did not feel okay. And then he just looks at me and yells at me, go to this other building. We weren't escorted. He didn't follow us. So G and I just start running. After you see the videos, after you hear about what happened with Capitol Police leadership, after you know that leadership knew about the threats of violence and didn't prepare adequately for it, I think about that officer. Did he not say that he was Capitol Police on purpose? Did he lose himself in that moment? Did he not give us the extraction point location because he forgot? Or was he trying to actually put us in a vulnerable situation? Just the very uncertainty that you don't know if that person was actually trying to protect you or not.
She said a lot more. Again, it was an hour and a half, so she said a ton more, but I mean, that gives you a gist of the story where she explained she never said rioters were in the building. She never said that. So,
or she never said that she was in the main part of the Capitol
she never
Dome
said she was.
either.
Matter of fact, she went through the. She gave pictures. She said the Dome building. That's not the building I was in. I mean, how much
What she
clearer can you
specifically
get?
said was she hid in a bathroom first.
I mean,
And then that's where she heard, like, you know, the ambient chatter, the screaming out loud outside of the bathroom. That's where she encountered the Capitol Police officer. And then she said that's when she saw, I believe her name is Representative Katie Porter.
Yep.
From California.
Yep.
She saw her, and Katie Porter was like, come into my office. So they sheltered in Katie Porter's office. And Katie Porter has come out and confirmed AOC's account. 100%. Confirmed her fear and then added in her own fear saying, we didn't know who was in the hallway. We didn't know if the rioters had breached another door, another security point, and if they were coming for us. And you have to imagine or figure that if someone was screaming out in the hallway, where is she? Where is she? They probably were talking about Nancy Pelosi. However, how would you know that? You don't know that for sure. And lest we forget.
Well, Nancy Pelosi's office is actually in the Capitol building.
But you don't, those things don't come into mind, you know, when you are hiding, when you are sheltering in place. And lest we forget, back in July, AOC was accosted on the Capitol steps by a fellow congressman, Congressman Yoho from Florida, called her names, said that she was a liar, got in her face. So why wouldn't she have some type of be triggered in some way?
Yeah, and she spoke several times about other moments where she has feared for her life.
Exactly.
Because I mean, she's had death threats. So the fear is palpable for her. But the question I have is, why is it that a woman just can't be, as AOC said, believed. Why is it so hard to believe a woman when they're telling their moments of trauma? Because this is not an unusual situation, and it is relatively specific to women. So I'm going to start out with Robbie Rock.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. My real struggle when I listened to Nancy Mace's account of the facts, the events that transpired. No rioters were banging on my door. That seems to be the rhetoric. There were no rioters in the hallway. But she also says that she felt like she was a sitting duck, that her life was in danger, that she took measures to protect her children that day, to make sure that they were sent home early.
Yep.
Mace did, exactly. She's talking about, this is a separate building. It's a 10-minute walk away. Okay, well, a 10-minute walk is a 2-minute run if you're out of shape. So, I mean, people aren't that far, and there's 30,000 of them. They found what they thought were improvised explosive devices.
I just want to say it's not a 10-minute walk. I know DC very well. It's literally across the street, so it's not a 10-minute walk.
The damn street.
But that's
if anybody's lying, I'm going to tell you, I listen to a lot of Nancy Mace. She's lied a lot. So she is a liar. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and I understand AOC's trauma being it's something that compacts the experience. Absolutely. But, let's take a look at the facts. Capitol Hill was under siege. There were 30,000 people there. Authorities did not respond in the necessary fashion to keep this from exploding the way that it went. If the officer who was banging on her door did not identify themselves properly as being a member of the Capitol Hill police force and just screaming, "Where is she? Where is she?" That would absolutely trigger a fear response in any normal person. So to me, it's just mind-boggling that she's being attacked by another woman while at the same time saying that she feared for her own life. So how is somebody else's account bullshit if you felt afraid for your life? Someone 2 offices down. It doesn't add up, and it's another one of those Fox pieces. Yeah.
It's another example of party over people. Because if she had said the exact same thing or expressed the exact same sentiments that AOC had, that she was the way AOC expressed them, the way, she emphatically said, "I was afraid. I encountered this officer who did not identify himself and who was screaming, where is she?" and whatever else. If that had been her saying that, no one would have questioned her. At least the conservatives wouldn't have questioned her. Maybe the Dems would have, because again, both sides are party over people. But it depends on
that.
The color of your skin. It depends on the party that you follow, the ideology that you have, whether or not you are going to be believed, whether or not people are going to call you a liar.
Johnny Storm?
Yeah, I think that
when they say they're dealing with trauma.
Well, to answer that question, I think because the way sometimes women communicate can come across emotional, and so that's why I think that the Republican Mace mentioned she doesn't live in reality or she's being exaggerative, and then she also criticized her term as a congresswoman. So I felt like honestly that kind of gave me that it was personal a little bit and like party affiliated, and it wasn't just hearing somebody for what they were actually traumatized by or going through. So I do feel like maybe it's a little bit of both party affiliation and that women have a bad rep and like how we speak and how we come across. Even like in a relationship, sometimes the guy's always like, "Oh, you're overly emotional." Not just me personally, but like women, we can come across that way. And so when we do,
don't be calling out your man.
But I think that because of that, but I don't see how AOC was becoming emotional. Like she didn't sound, well, she was emotional, but I didn't see how it was anything of just expressing herself from what she was going through. But yeah, it felt personal from Republican Mace's standpoint. It felt like it was personal. She didn't have to criticize her congresswoman term. Like, what was that for? That was unnecessary. But yeah.
And also, I mean, we're in a pandemic. You're getting, intel from inside that are saying, there are rioters out there who are armed, who are chanting, hang Mike Pence. You're hearing all kinds of people screaming in the hallway. You don't know what's going on. Take this scenario, for example. Let's say you're in the mall, right? And you get word, it comes across, the mall intercom that there's an active shooter in the mall on the premises.
You think
If
everybody?
security people in close proximity to you, they're going to tell you to do one of two things. They're going to tell you to evacuate, or they're going to tell you to shelter in place. If by chance, regardless of where you are in the mall, if by chance you choose to shelter in place, as soon as you hear shooter, active shooter on the premises, it does not matter where you are. There is an immediate fear that takes over. I mean, you could be a mile down. If you're like in the Mall of America, which is huge, you could be a mile down on the other side. But there's still that fear because you can't see what's going on the other side of that door. So for these people to come and chide her and call her a liar based on what she was thinking is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And like you said, we often as women, we get called out because we are emotional in certain instances, in certain scenarios. I mean, remember, I cried on the show because I couldn't flush the toilet.
It's BS for people to think that men are not emotional. They just
no. I said, but we often get it. People expect that of us. Is my point that women are emotional.
And I'm saying that men need to understand that men are emotional. Men need to understand men are emotional. So that's BS to be saying. We call all time, every time a man's calling like a woman emotional. That's BS. We may show our emotions differently.
Listen, Neil, I guarantee you, if Mike Pence heard those rioters screaming, hang Mike Pence, I guarantee you he was emotional.
And he's going to lie the next day and say he wasn't.
I guarantee you he was screaming for mother at the top of his lungs.
I mean, I only had one real point I wanted to make, but because the thing is, these moronic Fox News people are not going to sit through an hour and a half to get the whole story from anybody. So I've learned that the key difference between Republicans and Democrats is Democrats, if they make a mistake, like they say something wrong, maybe Mace misspoke, maybe she didn't hear the full story, right? And so she's just like, well, hey, we were in the Cannon building and there were no rioters in there because she thought AOC said the rioters were there. The key difference is if a Democrat makes a mistake, they tend to go into defense mode. I'm sorry, didn't mean it, I repent for my sins, etc. While, especially post-Trump era, Republicans tend to double down. They stand by their lies and slander to no end. And mostly because they have Fox News to back them up. I watched Hannity when he was interviewing Mace after all of this. And he, when he was asking the question, said the words, AOC claimed the rioters were at her door. Now, as a news person, you absolutely know that that is a lie. She never said that. But that's
also,
what he said. Those were his words.
The people on Fox News are not journalists. It's more of an entertainment show. So let's be, as a journalist, I take offense every time someone talks about, the journalists from Fox News. Those are not journalists. They do not have journalism degrees. They do not report news with any type of integrity. So that's that. So I expect nothing less from them.
They can spin the crap out of any story. I mean, it's just, and they have a huge audience that listens to this BS and takes it as news, which is absolutely frustrating. All right. Let's get, so Ernest Cooper says, agreed, Neo, that Neo. Mike Winter says, speak on it. White women tears are powerful weapons in this country and are always believed. Salai says, I listened to the whole IG from AOC and the context was so important. Totally agree with you. He says that they want to silence her because she's telling her truth. They're twisting the narrative in a way that only further puts AOC's safety in jeopardy. So ruthless. So there was one question that came to mind because she kept throughout the thing, she insinuated very often that there was things going on. There was unusual things with the Capitol Police, almost insinuating conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
That you know, we talked about how there would have been barriers if it was Black Lives Matter, but you got a waist high parade fence, which I'm looking at that. I'm like, I've never even seen that when there's a protest at the Capitol.
I think we all in real time were saying the same thing. I know I posted tons on my Facebook page, on my other social media pages. Where are the police? Where, like, what's happening? No one has been arrested. They should have shot them at the door. Like, I did not understand what was going on.
I know
You
they're
had police
investigating,
down on
but
the front lines who were not in proper riot gear. That's why they were fighting with their hands. They didn't even have the proper gear to defend themselves.
she talked
So
about how people have
that is
lost limbs, they've lost eyes. He went
that
into
is
very
just
much detail.
unprecedented. That is unprecedented. And I keep trying to impress upon people who say that it wasn't that big of a deal or whatever. This was the Capitol. Almost the entire US government was in that building at that time, including the sitting vice president. And they I mean, if they had breached, because where the young lady, Ashley Babbitt, where she was shot and they were trying to break down that door, it would have been over if they had gotten through there, which is why they didn't hesitate to shoot her, which is why those rioters ran when she fell. Like, it made no sense that building that on that particular day was not protected better than it was.
There's something behind it.
It made no sense at
And,
all.
and I'm going to ask this question, and it's going to be kind of a sensitive question. So there were 2 suicides following the of Capitol Police following the insurrection. And again, it's still under investigation, so I'm not claiming anything. But it just, in my mind, I start to wonder, were those possibly murders to hide something more? I mean, we've seen enough movies. We've seen enough movies where there are enough conspiracy theories where people in power will do anything they can to cover things up. And I am just, I mean, I'm not QAnon, but I certainly asked the question in my head, you know, you know, could these suicides have been murders? Murders look like suicide.
Right, Neil.
Hide
And
something.
when you say that, I think of Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah,
Did
good
really?
point.
Did he was? I mean, he had so much dirt on the most powerful people on the planet.
Yep.
No, he was silenced. Very much like this. If there was something at a higher level happening, then are people being silenced, or are they complicit with something that they don't want to fall on their sword for? So they're,
And I have a feeling this
death
attacks on
before dishonor.
AOC's is part of that silencing, because she's calling out some very clear things about some discrepancies with, Capitol Police. She's calling out clear discrepancies with, the police officer who was there. Right? She's called out problems with actual representatives where she felt like they were out to get her, not just her, but other people um, who were complicit. So it's not surprising to me that they're going after her like this, and they're using and Fox News is complicit in it. I think there's
Let
more
me
to
just
it.
let me just answer your question, just to give the flip side
Yeah,
perspective.
I'll take that.
Yeah, it could be something more sinister than what we are being told as it relates to the suicides, because there were 2. Hopefully there will be no more, but it also could be a situation where these police officers were triggered just like AOC. Like, we don't know what
Fear.
they saw at that moment, because again, there was a police officer who was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. There was another police officer, he didn't die, but he was beaten with a flagpole. We saw the police officers that were on the front lines who were having to fight for their lives against these people. We saw the noose that was set up outside that was meant for, initially, first and foremost, Mike Pence. So it could be that, it wasn't a case of someone being murdered. It could be
Could
that
just
these
be straight
police
suicide.
officers
Yeah.
were overcome. Like, it was just too much, especially since police officers are used to being the heroes for this faction of people. Blue lives matter. Now all of a sudden, no, you're a traitor, and we're going to kill you. So yeah, it could be a host of things. It could be a host of things.
Yeah. So Jeanette Brown says, I want to get through just a couple more of these if I can. So Jeanette Brown says, say it, white women's tears are always elicit sympathy, but women of color are often disbelieved. Mike Wolf says, ask Al Franken if both sides are party over people. That's true. Kevin Thaxton says, just because it's safe in one zone doesn't mean it's safe in another zone. Yeah.
I think Jacqueline Robinson just brought up a good point too. Some police officers, whether they're MPD, Metro Police, or Capitol Police, some police officers are also military veterans.
Yeah.
And they're still suffering from PTSD.
One thing I want to be clear, I was not discounting the possibility that
I think it's a fair
suicide,
question.
But
it is a fair question.
It was very strange as well. I mean, how quickly it happened. I mean, I don't know anyone who goes through has a suicidal moment, what they're going through. I can't claim to know anything that they were going through, but it's still a lot of strange things. Like AOC was saying, things just simply don't add up, and that was one of them. There's just the swiftness of these suicides, and it's just things don't start to not add up, and it's still not adding up. And I want to see a full investigation. And I hope we can somehow get some truth behind a lot that happened at some point.
Yeah.
All right, we spent a lot of time on that, so let's try to finish up